What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Millie Mill. Welcome to the very first Keeping It Real with Millie Mill show. Today we have a lot in store for you, so I hope you guys are ready for the show. I'm excited. I'm finally glad to be able to bring you guys the Keeping It Real with Millie Mill show. Before we get to business, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share. I'll give you all the information at the end of the show, but it is Xavier LaRue ENT. If you're going to look for us on YouTube, and then also if you guys love the show, you guys want to help, uh, donate to the show, I will leave the PayPal information on there. But today we have a very special guest in the house. We have Damian Taylor, who is a photographer. He's a father. He's a husband. He's an entrepreneur. He is a son. As much and more than anything, he is my brother. Welcome, Damian, to the show.
Thanks, Jamil.
Okay, so Damien has a lot of things under his belt, not mentioning being, what are you in karate now? A blue belt, black belt in
Yeah,
Kung
blue
Fu?
black,
Blue
blue
black.
black and kung fu.
See,
Yeah.
so he has a lot of things under his belt. But he's done a many of things. He started out with his undergraduate at UCSD in a Bachelor's of Science in Biology, and then progressed to Notre Dame to get his master's in business. And from there, he's become a photographer, he's become an entrepreneur, and it's just a whole lot of stuff that we're going to get into today. So let's go ahead and get into the show. Okay, so Damien, first of all, you started off your undergraduate at UCSD and became a scientist biology. How did you like that experience?
That's almost a loaded question.
Right.
I loved biology. I
hmm
wanted to be a doctor. I
hmm
loved science and the medicine. What I didn't like was the people who were associated with it and the system that came along.
I get it. I totally get it. So, that change from being a scientist going to get your business degree, at first was it like in hopes to mix and mingle the two, or was it just I'm done with science period and I want to do something new and leave that behind me?
I mean, so to be like 100% honest, I had no, my plan was not that specific. I wish I could say that I had this forethought and I was going to mix the two,
hmm
but I wasn't sure. I thought maybe I could, maybe I couldn't. If not,
hmm
I was cool not doing science anymore. Like if I wasn't going to be a doctor, I knew I wasn't going to work in a lab. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Um, I and I didn't want to go the PhD route because like it's basically no one's going to pay you and they're going to force you to work for a really long time and then everyone wants to throw around their egos and I don't really care about your ego.
Right.
So um, after working at the lab, they needed a website and they're like, hey, can you build one? We need to do this stuff for the FDA and for some marketing. I'm like,
hmm
sure, having no clue how to build a website, never having touched HTML before then. And my friend was like, oh yeah, we could do it. He knew a little bit of HTML, so like after work, we would stay, and I had this book called Web Design and HTML for Dummies. And so I
hmm
would just stay till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because I had nothing else to do.
Right. And the
I
good thing about it, though, that's when it was kind of like in its infancy,
yeah,
building websites and stuff. So a bad one still look good, I'm pretty sure.
right. And they had like this brochure for what the lab did. And I was like, okay, well, let's add this stuff from the lab onto the internet. So I just read that and was thinking like I sketched out what the page should look like. And my friend was like, oh, I could do this. I'll use front page. And he did part of it, and then I did part of it, and I would add the content, and he drop in a picture, and we're like, look, you got a website now. And
Right.
they were like, oh, you should be in marketing. And my friend said, yeah, you should really be in marketing. You're good at this. Sure.
Uh-huh.
I never thought about marketing. And honestly, I hadn't, because to me, people who majored in business and
Mhm.
marketing and stuff at the time when I was in college, I thought those
Mhm.
were fluffs. I'm like,
Mhm.
why don't you pick a real major for like people with brains? Do
Right.
science, like be an engineer, be a biologist, do something like marketing. That's making up stuff and putting pretty pictures on a page.
Right.
I'm like, okay, cool. I think I could do that. But then nobody wanted to hire me for marketing. And so
Mhm.
my friend goes, oh, that's probably because you need like a business degree. And that's what everyone said. Well, you didn't study business. I'm like, I studied neuroscience. I think I
Hmm.
can figure out how this shit works,
Right.
right? But no one believed me, so I go, okay, well, fine, I'll go back to business school.
Mhm.
And that was more what happened. It wasn't like I
Right.
had this grand plan or
Of
anything.
like, okay, well, let me just go to business school.
Right.
Okay. So you did that, and then once you finished business school, you finished it, I mean, right on time, which is pretty fast. Um, now, how was that transition, first of all, going from your undergraduate to business? Was it just easy transition from the two?
Eh, easy-ish.
Uh-huh.
And I say ish because it was similar to my undergrad,
Hmm.
where, well, let me take it back. Doing the work and stuff, it was new stuff, so I was learning new topics and new things, and it was at some points difficult for me to wrap my head around it, especially accounting. Not because accounting is innately difficult, but it's
Hmm.
because they kept calling accounting a science, and I came from science. And for me, science is something that is repeatable and you can prove, whereas accounting, the rules change every year. And
Exactly.
so, like, there are things you do,
Hmm.
but you might do that differently depending on how the rules go. And so it
Hmm.
was something that just it seemed it was messy and human, but people acted like it was really precise. So that was really difficult for me to wrap my head around. And then there were the folks I went to school with who were all really great, but similar to when I was in undergrad, like in my business class, there were 133, 132 of us, something like that. And four of us were black.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so like we were really tight knit. We were really good. And there was like the people in the class ahead of us, and there was three or four of them too. So it was like we had a black student union, there was like seven of
Right.
us. Right.
Unintentional black student union.
Yeah, no, we legitimately we had like a budget, we had meetings and stuff, but there were seven of us.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Right.
Um, and so a lot of the stuff we did was with alumni from the undergraduate and from the law school. So we did a lot of stuff with them to kind of make it so it wasn't always like the same seven people all the time.
Hmm.
But it was good in the sense that I learned a lot about how the business world works. I learned the importance of relationships and networking. And I don't
Hmm.
mean just like the superficial, like, hey, what's up? Like that too, that
No. Yeah.
there's a place for that, but actually having relationships, and then the notion of like a community, an alumni. Like I've never had an alumni association from any
Hmm.
of the schools I went to that was like you make a phone call and they're like it'll get done. Like that just seemed
Exactly.
like something that was on TV to me, and
Yeah.
so it was hard for me to believe that that was really a thing, that people were really that committed to. If someone from this Notre Dame community calls, we're
Hmm.
going to help. Um,
Exactly.
but they did, and I really appreciate that. That's how I got my internships. That's how I got interviews. I mean, it proved to be really helpful, and it was always with the understanding that as each one of us climb, we should help somebody else too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's major too, because it's like you're off in this world and you don't think you have support, but then especially having the people who've been through it and say like, hey, I know what you're going through. I got your back. Let me make that phone call. It gives you that extra sense of motivation and power. Like I really do have a team behind me.
Yeah. And it was
So
also
which is
weird too,
mhm,
like just believing, but why would you do that? You don't know me, but you went to Notre Dame, like, but you don't know me.
exactly. It's like, what if I put a bad step on your name? They're like, no, you went to Notre Dame.
Yeah, they're like, you won't do that because then it's bad for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, Lord, drinking my water. That's amazing. So you graduated from Notre Dame, and then, not ironically, I think it is kind of a notable, not a notable transition, but not an unlikely transition to go from science to the world of entertainment once you graduated. When you moved back to LA, so I know you worked for most of the major studios and even some internet companies. So how was it working with the studios and going through that transition um, in your
Yeah,
career?
that was a funny thing because it was it was great and it was terrible at the same time. Like there
Hmm.
was I met some really amazing people. I had some really awesome, amazing mentors and people who I still to this day will call for advice or work with. And it was really great. But on the other end, I saw some of the most incompetent, like intellectually challenged people I've ever worked with in my life. And I don't mean that just like to put people down.
No,
I'm
I
thinking of
agree.
it more because these were people who were in positions of power
Hmm.
and high up authority positions. And rather than being thoughtful in what they did or intentional in what they did, their actions were largely emotional and ego
Hmm.
based.
Hmm.
And so with that, I saw just bad decision after bad decision happen, and people were just like, oh, wow, oh, my ego, oh, you hurt my feelings, I'm going to take you out. And so there was like, it was
Right.
like corporate Game of Thrones,
Right.
but like everyone was fighting for like nothing.
Right.
You're all fighting, but then there's nothing to get. So why are we fighting?
Right. Like, what is the big fight about? No, I totally get it. And then I know with the entertainment industry, though, it's a lot of, like you said, big egos, and everybody is somebody. Um, a lot of people get these positions just because mommy and daddy were somebody, and now I'm promoted to this higher position just because of who mommy and daddy was. So it's like that whole nepo type of thing that they have going on there too. And it's like you're not competent to even balance a checkbook. How are you going to run a whole company?
Well, even like outside of that, it wasn't even some of the people had no connections to anyone before getting into the
Mm,
entertainment industry, but there was just lots of people with fragile, damaged egos, and they used this as a way to validate themselves. And that's when
hmm.
it became dangerous, where
Yeah.
they wanted to be in the sphere of influence of celebrity or someone famous. And so there's lots of name
Hmm.
dropping, and I just want to be in the room. And so there's just a lot of people with fragile conceptions of themselves.
Uh,
And any little break can destroy it. And the difficult part for me was I could have cared less whether they were competent or not. But
hmm.
where it became hard for me was when the way I always worked and what I had always learned is my job, if I'm working for you, my job is to make you look good. If I make
Yeah.
you look good, we're all cool. But some of the people I worked for, not everyone. I had some, like I said, I had some amazing bosses, but some of them were not. And
Hmm.
some of them, if I did something to make them look good, even if I gave them the credit, they were threatened because suddenly they were like, I can't do this again, or you're going to look better than me, or you're going to try and take it away. And so what they would try to do then is destroy whatever I did or throw me under the bus for something.
Hmm.
And that's where it became really kind of annoying and difficult was when I'm like, I'm trying to do you a solid. I'm helping you out. And
Hmm.
you're threatened by that? That just seems weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, why? That doesn't even, it doesn't even make sense. So now in between that, while you were still working there, was that when you started the photography? When you're still in the studio?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, now was it because of the being in the entertainment industry that made you decided, or was it just something you always wanted to do as far as taking, being a photographer? Um,
No, I didn't. It's not. It was actually up until that point. It was never a desire of mine. I was never like, "Oh, I'm going to be a photographer." Like I just didn't get it. Like I remember I had a friend win a photo contest in high school. He took a picture of a wet leaf on asphalt and like, all right, I don't get it, right? And you
right.
won for this, all right. Like I
Okay.
just wasn't there.
All right.
So that wasn't anything I ever thought of. But funnily enough, what made me do it, and this is going to be really weird. So remember Jamal's friend from elementary school, Eva, on Top Model.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So when Jamal called and told me his friend was on Top Model, I was like, oh, well, let me watch this, right? Like, let's go support Eva.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I hadn't seen her since their like fifth grade graduation or whatever it was. She had pigtails. And I'm sure she doesn't even know who I am. She can't even remember
Right.
me.
Exactly.
But um, I went to go look at it and we're like, oh, there's Eva. And then somewhere on there, we're like, oh, Eva's getting to the finals, right? And near the end, Tyra Banks is like, I'm going to take photos of all of you.
Uh-huh.
And she did some photos and like, oh, these are nice
Uh-huh.
photos.
Uh-huh.
And I was watching it and I remember telling my wife, okay, Now, if Tyra Banks can take some photos, like
I
for
can take some.
real, how hard could it be? I could do this. So like, let's take a photo class.
Right,
I was like, let me see what this is. And
right,
so
right.
we did a photo class, and that was it. And it was just fun. And I started to learn a lot more about it. And I discovered there were some photographers that I really liked. And so yeah, then from there, I was still working at the studio and figured this was something fun that I could do that was creative, didn't
Hmm.
require me because I love doing data work and analytical stuff, but I needed a creative outlet, and
Hmm.
I wasn't singing or doing music at the time, so I needed something.
Hmm.
Um, and it was the first time in my life I hadn't been doing music or wasn't in a choir or singing or anything. So and I didn't want to go start a band or something. That just seemed stupid. So I'm like,
Right.
photography could be the thing. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh, well, that's cool. And so then that led you to starting your own photography company, um, going to being editors for different magazines, and you just became visited a have a column in, is it Forbes?
Yeah, but I'm a writer now. So
A writer, yeah,
I was
not an
writing in
editor,
Forbes,
right?
yeah.
That's amazing. So, and then which other magazine you were doing editing for?
I was an editor for the LA Fashion Magazine, very briefly for Cool America. So yeah, it's funny because for all of those as a photographer, people usually hired me not just because I was a photographer. They're like, okay, you're good enough. I like what
Hmm.
you're doing, but it's because I could write. And writing was something that I'd always done. Like I in undergrad, I also studied literature, and I thought I would be like writing and doing science at some point because I just loved writing. So
Yeah,
um, that made sense. But they're like, oh, if we sent you to do an interview, you could do the photos and write it. Perfect. And
that
so
is.
that was how I got a lot of photo gigs at magazines over other folks, is because I could write.
Oh, oh, that is so cool. So now, after all of this that you've done and the accomplishments, what do you have going on now?
And so after doing a lot of work with studios, I went to from the big studios to like small digital ones.
Hmm.
I after the small digital ones were kind of the thing that pushed me into a new direction because after working for three companies where like they were bought out by someone else, or like, hey, we got what we needed from you. This is awesome. Bye. Right. They're just like, kick you to the curb. I'm like,
Hmm.
so I do all the work. I get you to a place where you can be successful and then you get rid of me for it. Like
Hmm.
to the point where like you're being sold for tens of millions of dollars, but then you're like, but we don't need you anymore. Like, but I got you here, right?
Exactly.
Um, and it's not me single-handedly,
Yeah, but I mean, it's just the nature of the beast.
but where there's an undeniable factor, whereas if I were not there, they wouldn't have been in that position, right?
Hmm.
Um, I realized that I had been doing some consulting on the side, and I decided one day after the last digital studio I worked for, that if this same thing happens, then I'm not coming back to one because
Yeah,
I had been consulting and realized that honestly, I got tired of doing the thing for other people when I could just do the thing for myself. Like
yeah.
I would do the work and not get the benefits. I'm like, why would I keep doing that when I can just
Hmm.
do it on my own and get the benefits?
Exactly. And kill two birds with one stone, which
Yeah.
is good. And then in interim of getting your own consulting company, and you've been doing great at, I know you have your virtual stuff. You have your Tech Witch uh, animated series, which was nominated for an award last year.
I won the award, which is kind of
Yeah, he
cool.
won the award. I'm so sorry. Yes, he won
Yeah.
the award. And so, how's it going with Tech Witch? When do we get a new season, new episode?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm still doing consulting. It's all analytical stuff, and
Hmm.
it's kind of the best of both worlds. I do consulting
Hmm.
for media companies, so data, analytics, and strategy for media companies. So I can still have the creative piece, but one of the other parts of our company is I do a lot of creative stuff. So coming up with ideas, and like I said, I love writing, and so I had
Hmm.
been writing some series, and Tech, which was one of them,
Hmm.
and we have season one. I wanted season two to be released earlier this year, but unfortunately, we had an issue with the writer who was working with us wanting more credit than I think he deserved, and he got a little
Hmm.
nasty and brought in lawyers and tried to say that he created it and deserved
Hmm.
more, and I was taking something away from him. And I'm like, dude, I had this. You wrote to an outline. I hired you and paid you. Now I'm trying to get you paid beyond that and make sure
Right.
that you get credit, and you're like, you deserve more.
Now you're being
So
greedy.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just like, and this was also so that we can get the copyright so that we could sell it. Um, and so I just want to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row. And so
Got it.
because of that, we had all of season two finished, and we had the first half of it recorded. Um, but because of that, I scrapped it all and decided like I don't
To
want
get
anything
all
that
of
you've
their parts
touched.
out.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and just started all over. So I've written the first four episodes of the next season. Um, and it's just been so busy with the rest of the business that I haven't had a chance to get beyond that.
Hmm.
So hopefully soon, over the holidays, we'll start to have more. Until then, I've been writing just sort of short little stories or one-off stories that might not be tech-rich, but they're just fun fantasy, science fiction stories.
Oh, cool, cool. And if anybody wants to check them out, where can they see them at?
So you can listen to our podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're there. But the podcast itself is called If Imagination and Fantasy. So
Okay.
the first two letters of imagination and fantasy, if. And I also thought if was kind of cool because it's like the beginning of anything that's like a fantasy, right? Like if only blah blah blah, or if I
Right.
could, or so
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because you're always gonna say, if I only could do the
yeah.
system. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's totally amazing. Well, I want to thank you so much for being my first guest and keeping it real with Millie Mill. It's been amazing. Definitely a labor of love, as you know, getting anything started. And, I just, hope that we get you on again and the show keeps growing and we get bigger and bigger and, make this a family thing.
We will. And I mean, I started I have another company, my software company, right? And I
Yeah,
started
yeah.
that. And if you need help on it, well, you might reach out to me anyway. But our first product is for creatives, whether it be a podcast or a movie studio, to help you manage your social media. So getting the
Okay.
optimized title,
You guys
description,
hear that?
even script. It should be out where it should be ready in about 4 weeks.
Oh,
So
good.
probably
Okay.
middle of November, end of November, to be honest, after we do all the testing and stuff.
Hmm.
But if you ever want to write something like it's a model that's been trained on. I do a lot of data work with social media, trained
Hmm.
on best practices that I've learned. So these are the
Good.
elements of sticky or a viral title. These are the
Mhm.
best elements and flows of videos that get people to watch longer. These are the elements of the algorithm that you have to keep in mind. These are the top performing videos from YouTube or wherever for this month. And I update that monthly. So there's always this new fresh thing of what's top, what's trending. And we tested it out on my YouTube channel and it's working really well.
Is
We
it?
went
Oh, that's good.
from this channel was getting like 10 views per video to like thousands now. So like
Oh,
as soon
good.
as we
Oh,
did it, like
wow.
you saw, I can one day I'll show the
Mhm.
curve, but it went from like this little flat line to it's spiking up, which was really
And they
great to
like,
see.
well, okay, good. It's actually working. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, definitely. You guys, everybody hear that. So we all gotta support to get that because
You'll
I,
know,
I
you'll
think
see it. It'll stand out. It's called Social Hooker, of
mhm.
course. So
Well, when it launches, then definitely we have to have you come back and go ahead and show us social hookup so then we all get signed up for it.
right. Cool.
Right.
I will. I will. No, I really wanted to do something that'll help folks like you, like just and me,
Yeah.
like just trying to grind it out and try to make our
Just
lives
right.
easier.
Exactly. Don't have any like pushing her back, and it's just a totally blood, sweat, and tears. You
Right.
know. So no, it's amazing. I'm glad we are able to get it launched and get it started. I'm glad that you have everything. Everybody be on the lookout for Social Hooker. Support, like, and subscribe. And that is our show. We will see you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jamil.